Here in front of me we have the GJ Locks decoder. This particular decoder will work with the ERA Fortress Classic, the ERA Fortress Standard, the Union Strongbolt, and also the Yale version of the Strongbolt, the PM series. And this came about during the lockdown, COVID lockdown, when Martin Newton and John Fall put their heads together. Both are world experts in the design of covert entry tools and safe manipulation tools. They put their heads together and decided to create a tool that would exploit the fact that the heels on the levers on all of these locks can be decoded. This is literally just a decoder, mind you. It doesn't open the locks. All it does is it tells you the lever set or combination of levers that have been used within the lock, and then you, armed with that information, you can then create a makeup key like we have here to get the lock open, or you can use a pin and cam tool, or you may even choose to curtain pick based on the information that you've gathered from this particular tool. In front of us I've got two versions of this decoder. This is the original version that came out a year ago, and I've been using this on a daily basis to good effect. There were a few things that the operator needed to be aware of with this tool, like calibration and how to insert it into locks. And then here we've got the very latest version, which has had a few engineering changes, minor changes, which makes it slightly easier to use. And this is the one that we're going to be concentrating on during this video series. But I'm also going to do a quick video showing you what, if you own the original version, what you need to do to get the best results from that. So I'm going to show you how to set this tool up so that when the bolt is on the left or the bolt is on the right, how you take readings, how you adjust the tool to do so. And then once we've done that, then we're then going to be talking about using the readings that you've obtained from the tool to load your makeup key and or pin and cam, or even to use that information from a curtain picking perspective. So this is a deep dive into this tool and how it will work for you. So what is it that's inside all of these locks that this particular decoder is able to exploit? If we have a look here in my hand, I've got a full lever set from the Fortress, starting with a lever height 1 through to 7, and you can see the true gates lining up there. But if we look at the heels on these levers, you can see that they are stepped. Each lever has a predictable height difference between lever height 1 through to lever height 7, and it's this predictable difference that we're able to exploit and read, because each one of these will be in a different position inside the lock. So if we look at the tool itself, you can see that we have a tip, and that tip, when inserted inside the lock and rotated round, will stop when it hits the heel of the lever, and depending on the height of the lever, where it stops will be different, and we'll be able to interpret that difference using the scale on the front here. So let's just take a look at the locks. I've taken the caps off. This is the Fortress Classic, and you can probably see that the lever heights or heels there are forming a pattern. It's the same with the Fortress, Standard Fortress. It's the same with the Union Strongbolt, and finally the Yale, which is effectively like a Strongbolt. The levers are exactly the same. The major difference between these two is actually the shape of the bolts. So this tool is able to be inserted into the lock, and then this reader tip here is rotated round, and we use that when it stops. We use the position of where it stops to gain a reading from the dial on the front and understand what lever height we're dealing with. As you can imagine, this reader tip here, to be able to take a reading off the heels of the levers, if the bolt is mounted on the left, the heels of the levers are going to be on the right. And as you can see, when I rotate this round, this reader tip will move around and take a reading from the heels on the right hand side of the lock. If the lock is mounted the other way around, then we're going to be able to have to be able to insert this tool from the other side, and then the reader tip is going to need to move and rotate in the completely opposite direction. So the first thing we need to do with this tool is work out, when we're working with the bolt left, how we convert it to then work with the bolt on the right. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to look at, is how we change the tip from a right to a left, and how we change this dial from a right to a left. So let's take a quick look at how we can swap this decoder from reading with the bolt on the left to reading with the bolt on the right. And there are essentially two different ways of doing this. First of all, the reader tip, as you can see, is currently configured to read the lever heels on the right there, and they need to read the lever heels on the left. So you'll find there's a retaining screw on the end for the to hold the reader tip in place, and there's a little screwdriver supplied in the kit, so we can undo that screw, and then the reader tip itself is indexed in place with a little nib just sticking up here. So if we turn that around and pop it on that way round, and then if we put the retaining screw back in, that is then facing in the right direction then for us to be able to read the lever heels on a lock where the bolt is on the right hand side. Just pop this screw in. Always good to get into the habit of, when you're using this tool, the very first thing to do would be to check the tightness of all of these components, because they can work their way loose, and if they are loose, then you will be in the position where potentially you can get some error introduced into the tool. So always make sure that reader tip screw is nice and tight. And then on this side, you can see that the rotating dial currently says bolt left. If I undo this knurled nut, this handle here will come off. And then this actual disc, reader disc, is held in with a little Allen screw. It's the smaller one of the two. There's two Allen keys supplied in the kit. There's a larger and a smaller. Let's just undo that small one, and you can see there's a little pin that holds that reader disc in place. And what we need to do is push that pin out. And then on the back of this tool, we've got an R and a left, right and a left, R and an L, etched onto the back of the tool there. So if we've got this saying bolt right, then obviously we want that pin that we've just taken out to go through that right hand hole. So I'm going to pop that back in, and then I'm going to use the little bolt that's on that side of the decoder to clamp that up. Now you don't want this to be tight. You don't want to be pushing that down and making it so tight that there's a lot of friction there. You want it to move freely. And then what I do is I put the reader tip in line with this indexing rod, and then I pop the wire, this part here on this handle, into the slots, and there we go, and this handle part, you can see the screw here actually indexes into that hole there. You can't go wrong with this. So basically you have to pop that on and then gently do the screw up, and then just give it a little wiggle and make sure that you're actually screwing into that indexing hole on this arm. So we'll screw that in all the way nice and tight. And now when I turn this, you can see that now I'm reading the heels on the left hand side for a right mounted lock. And that is the process for changing that over. There is a slightly different way of doing this. I'll very quickly show you. If you undo that little retaining pin for the spinning dial there, And then if you take the reader tip off, there we go. What you will find is you don't have to undo this. You can actually extract the entire reader shaft from the tool, and that frees this disc up so you can rotate rotate it to read the other side. But also at this stage you could give this a wipe, give it a spray with some lubricant. I use GT85. I wouldn't recommend using WD-40 because of the oil based in there. So give that a little bit of a lube and a clean, keeps the tool fresh, keeps everything rotating smoothly. And now when we put this back on, we'll change it back to left so we can pop that through there like so. We can pop this back into the tool. And now all we need to do is put that relocating pin, this central pin, into the left-hand hole on this side. And once that's in there, we're then going to do up this little Allen screw, and then it says bolt left, so we're going to be reading our levers on the right. Let's just pop this back in, there we go, which means that this reader tip needs to face to the right. So the reader tip always faces the opposite direction to the bolt. So you always read from the opposite side to the bolt. So let's pop that back in. And again, before you use the tool, always make sure that all of these screws are nice and tight. This one especially, because if this is actually loose, then it can rock on the handle and it can give you false readings. So now you can see that the reader tip now is set up for us to be able to read the lock on the when the bolt is on the left and the lever hills are on the right. So there are two different methods there. One involves taking this handle off and then swapping the dial over and putting the handle back on again. And the other one, once this reader tip's been removed, this tube can actually come out of that shaft. You can give it a clean, you can give it a lubricate, and you can see it's now moving nice and smoothly, and also nice and smoothly in and out as well, which is what you basically need. The smoother it works, the easier it's going to be for you to navigate your way through the lock and know where you are. So that's how you swap the reader tip from a right to a left and the dial on the front.